Well, hey there, folks. It's Scott once again, and welcome to another video. This time it's going to be a bit of a different video, or a completely different video than what I'm used to. It's actually going to give my personal thoughts on something, and it's something related to the Fandom Collective. They gave me several choices of which topics to discuss, whether it's Star Wars related, or the new Joker film, or even the new Breaking Bad film on Netflix called El Camino. And of course, which is based on the TV show Breaking Bad, and I've only seen one episode of it. It's the very first pilot episode, and I haven't seen anything else of it. I know I've heard great things about that show. It's probably won awards. Cranston is a good actor. But I never got around to watching the series. But someday down the road, I definitely probably will watch it. I'll probably binge watch it on Netflix if it's still on there. But it just won't be anytime soon. But I will eventually watch the show and get my ideas on that. So, but anywho, the subject I'm going to be talking about is definitely something Star Wars related, but not in the way you think. I've been wanting to do this for a while, and it's came to me before. And to be honest, I've done so many versions of this video, but I don't like how they turned out. But hopefully, this one will turn out a hell of a lot better. And hopefully, for all you new subs and current subs, hopefully you will like this video. I really do. And basically, the Star Wars related discussion or topic is going to be how I think the Star Wars sequel trilogy should have unfolded as a whole. And I'll be talking briefly about, how Lucas sold the rights in 2012, the little brief production period on The Force Awakens, and then talk about my thoughts on The Force Awakens, The Last Jedi, and what I think about the upcoming final one in the Star Wars saga, The Rise of Skywalker. So anyways, let's get on with it. Now, in 2012, and I'm going by my recollection, I'm not going to look anything up. I'm just going to remember whatever I can. But I do remember George Lucas sold the Star Wars franchise rights in 2012 for around $4 billion, so that's a lot of dough, and he's set for life, and probably his children and his children's children will all be set for life, especially when he leaves this earth. Hopefully, he'll be one with the Force, and he'll be gone away from this mess. So, anywho, back on that subject. Sometime later that year, or maybe the next year in 2013, Disney announces they're going to do the Star Wars sequel trilogy, and eventually, they get J.J. Abrams because of his success with the Star Trek reboot and its sequel, Star Trek Into Darkness. Domestically, they made over $200 million plus, and worldwide they did fairly decent as well. So, and the fact that he's done sci-fi related stuff, that has nostalgia, or he did Super 8, in between this after the Star Trek reboot, and I remember not minding that film. But he does also have a notable reputation for being a producer on some notable TV series like Felicity, Alias, and Lost. And he's directed several films like I said, the Mission Impossible 3 film, which I think is the best one. It had the best villain. I think it ended at the time before the fourth one came about. Because JJ would serve as producer on the upcoming sequels. He because of his production company Bad Robot. But yeah, anyway, it had the best villain. Third one, I think it ended the trilogy perfectly. If it was going to be the last one, but there would be more. But anywho, believe it or not, JJ was handpicked by George Lucas, probably because of his familiarity with being a sci-fi fan, and supposedly JJ said he was a fan of Star Wars, even though he directed Star Trek. Basically, to be honest, looking back, I feel like JJ used Star Trek to audition for Star Wars, and he got his wish. He definitely, landed Star Wars, and now that's going to be on his resume for quite some time. So anyways, after they get JJ in, apparently Lawrence Kasdan is brought back because he wrote, believe it or not, he wrote both the later original trilogy sequels, Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, supposedly. And he was brought on board to write the new one. As far as how involved he was, I don't know for sure. But if anything good was from The Force Awakens, it was probably because of him. Or maybe he had a different draft, I don't know. But anything good was probably because of him, because he is a capable writer, and I do like some of his films. I liked Grand Canyon. He did a movie called Heat, or Body Heat, and he's done several other films I can't think of off the top of my head. But anyways, he's a pretty solid writer, and definitely no Star Wars. So anyways, JJ's hired, Lawrence Kasdan's hired, and George Lucas, believe it or not, was the creative consultant. But here's the thing: he should have been more than just the creative consultant. He should have actively gone back in the producer's chair instead of, giving the reins to Kathleen Kennedy for Lucasfilm. She probably assured George that she will treat this property with some respect, which was a complete and utter and bullshit lie, as we would later find out, because she wanted to really truly push for her own agenda, which was the female agenda, the Force's female bullshit, which I am not going to follow. But anywho, then we get the cast. We get the originals back. We get Harrison Ford, Mark Hamill, Carrie Fisher, and of course Anthony Daniels as C-3PO. I don't think Kenny Baker was alive at the time, or he was in poor health. But anywho, and then we get the new cast members. Adam Driver, Daisy Ridley, John Boyega, Oscar Isaac, and Dominic Gleeson. And then that actress who's in Game of Thrones, the very tall actress, I forget what her name is Captain Phasma. I forget if I mentioned Dominic Gleeson, but anywho, he's in there. Anyway, the film starts filming, it wraps up. We get the teaser trailer in November. It looks interesting, even though the title could have been better. And then we get 2 more trailers, which really hype it up. And I'm thinking, yeah, we're gonna get an awesome Star Wars sequel. And then I see it, and I'm thinking, at the time, it's a good sequel because I saw it more than once. And then, but looking back, the film definitely has its flaws for sure. But I thought at the time it was going to be an okay first step, because maybe they will explain things in the next one with some consistency. And JJ, being, sci-fi fanatic, he definitely got the flash. He definitely had the visual style. He does have some nice shots. The problem is with JJ really is that I feel like he lacks great characters, or very impactful, well-rounded dimensional characters that are not really able to carry the film like they should. They don't have any character dynamics. They don't have this development. They're just there. And the main problems I have with them was making Han and Leia real complete failures as parents. Because there is no way they would have let their own son turn to the dark side. Maybe their son might have been tempted by the dark side, but he would not fully have turned. They would have jumped through those hurdles to fight for their very own son. And the fact that Luke ran away for some odd reason, I felt like maybe JJ might have explained that a little different than what we got in The Last Jedi. So looking back, in all honesty, if you handpicked JJ should have been your go-to guy. And that was my phone going off. And it's not important. But anyways, back on the subject. JJ should have been your go-to guy from here on out, because George Lucas, despite not directing all the sequels, but he was heavily involved. He directed all the prequels. He wrote all of them. He was the screenwriter for them. And JJ, should have done all this if you handpicked him. But if there's anything, if there's a weakness in JJ, it's as a writer. You should have gotten a different writer. You should have gotten Lawrence Kasdan, and you know what? Maybe Kasdan should have been the sole writer, or if you wanted to, you should have gotten James Cameron, because he understands character development. He understands science fiction better than anyone. He's the guy that did Terminator 2. He did the very underrated and overlooked film The Abyss, a great action film and True Lies. And then he did Avatar, even though maybe it's not his greatest film. But you know what? It had some visual flair. The characters, were at least interesting. It wasn't perfect. It may have been a ripoff of Dances with Wolves, but there was something to that film. And you know what? You have JJ directing, you have James Cameron writing, along with Lawrence Kasdan. Man, you're in for a good film. I think even better than a good film. You're in for the sequel trilogy that could be as good as the original, maybe even better if you went with that route. That's what you should have done. Not try to recreate what George Lucas, did back from 77 to 83, where he only directed the first Star Wars entry. Then Irvin Kershner directed Empire Strikes Back, and then Richard Marquand directed Return of the Jedi. because they would have Rian Johnson direct the next one, Episode 8, which would become The Last Jedi, and then Colin Trevorrow would have done Episode 9, which probably would have been a completely different film, hadn't it been for Carrie Fisher's death. But anyways, Force Awakens is a success, but I'm not a fan of how they made Han, Luke, and Leia, complete failures, which is not, and that was the problem. It was just fundamentally wrong for them to be completely disrespected and be butchered like that. I thought, well, you know what? Maybe the next one will explain that. They somewhat did in their own twisted way, which was completely unnecessary. That's when The Last Jedi goes completely backwards, so far into light speed. No, you know what? Take it back. Not light speed, but ridiculous speed. To the realms of butchery and fundamentally wrong and just poor character development, or well, not just poor character development, but just as a whole, fundamentally complete reversal of what they would have represented from the original trilogy. Anyways, we get the teaser for Last Jedi, and unfortunately it has the part where Luke says it's time for the Jedi to end. I'm like, why the fuck are you saying this? I don't know why you're saying this at all, but whatever. And sorry, my nose is itching. But anyways, then we get the trailer, and it actually looks interesting. It looks quite intense, because we see Luke is dressed in some dark clothing. We see Luke, is Luke, turning to the dark side? Is he like a double agent for both the dark and the light sides? Is he trying to understand, trying to touch and tap into the, unexpected way of the Force? Is there like a unification of both the light and the dark side? I don't know. What happens with Rey? How far does her journey go? Where does she go from here on? And what happens with, or is there some kind of character chemistry between Kylo Ren and Rey or something? It looks interesting. So I see the film, and very first thing, you see a fucking pathetic Yo Mama joke, or basically a ripoff of what would be those Verizon commercials or phone commercials where they'd be like, hey, can you hear me now? Good. Can you hear me now? Good. Can you hear me now? Good. That's how you introduce that film. And not only that, the main problem was how Luke Skywalker was written. The greatest known character, the most beloved character, who was a good person, who fought tooth and nail to save his father, and they completely, fundamentally screw up his character, which you just want to gouge your fucking eyes out. Because here's the thing, whenever Rey hands him the lightsaber, what does he do? Just tosses away like it's nothing. Seriously, that's what... He would have had a discussion with Rey about this, not just toss over like it was fucking nothing. Like, fuck this shit. No way. This is not the Luke Skywalker that we grew up with. Worst of all, then you have him drinking fucking green titty fucking milk, probably from a sad walrus looking fucking titty creature, and it's not even good titties, and you can tell by just the grit of his teeth that he has so much disdain for what he's doing there. Not only that, he explained that somehow the reason why Luke ran away like a coward chicken shit pussy was because, or Jake really, was because he was afraid of his own nephew becoming into another Darth Vader. And he almost killed him for that, but he held back. But unfortunately, Ben Solo saw the lightsaber and defended himself, and that's when Ben Solo went full dark side mode. And there was no way in hell that Luke would have just turned that drastically to killing him. He would have had a conversation and said, Ben, I know what you've been through. This is not the way to go. I can help you. Just concentrate and listen to me, or something like that. But no, they chose to just bastardize Luke and completely, in this dysfunctional script that needed a complete overhaul. And the whole film, as a result, even though it did good at the box office, it made considerably less than The Force Awakens, and it pretty much divided the fan base as a whole. They were trying to subject to our expectations, trying to believe that they're cleverer than they are when they really are not. And then they, of course, the producers like Kathleen Kennedy and Rian Johnson were saying that the Force is female, or girls cannot relate to Luke Skywalker, or we're sexist, misogynistic man babies. No, we wanted a film that respected the whole Star Wars lore as a whole and did not completely fundamentally screw up all the characters and even the new characters. They're not given much to do. One of them's turned into a joke. One of them's put in the fucking closet and belittled by this purple hair bitch, where basically she's like, you're a loose cannon and we don't need rebels like you trying to mess up our way of life. Hey, he just wanted to know what the plan was and you didn't fucking tell him. And that's why he did this mutiny that led to nowhere. And then all of a sudden you say you like him. That was a fucking useless character. That's the same with the Rose Tico character. You want to promote your whole idea of PETA and animal rescue, which was not needed, and stuns Finn because he was trying to leave and whatever, and that was a useless character. And then what else? Even though there's some well acted scenes between Adam Driver and Daisy Ridley, they really don't do a whole lot, and they've really Kylo Ren as a character, he's a very flawed character, but with hardly much development. He throws tantrums like you saw in The Force Awakens, like an emo bitch, and here he's kind of emo, even though Adam Driver does his best to, contain himself at times. It's good acting by Adam Driver, I'll give him that. But the problem was, his character in The Last Jedi was like schizophrenic. It's like he flip-flops between being good, bad, and then back to bad again. It's like that's supposed to be character development. That's pretty much just inconsistency and schizophrenia at best for Kylo Ren. And then, of course, when Luke actually tries to do something, he just basically projects himself, and then because I guess it took so much energy, that's how he fucking dies. That's a pathetic way for him to go out. Just like it was pathetic of Han Solo to be stabbed by his own son and just dropped in the shaft like nothing. But unfortunately, Harrison Ford didn't want to do any more Star Wars films. He wanted to be killed off, and he got his wish. He originally wanted to be killed off in probably even maybe in 5 or actually really technically 6, but George Lucas pulled him aside and said, no, Harrison, you're going to be in Return of the Jedi and you're going to fucking like it, so suck it up, Buttercup. So yeah, but Harrison got his wish. And unfortunately, Carrie Fisher, she was going to originally probably be having a major role in 9, but unfortunately in 2016, I believe in December, right around the holidays, she unfortunately died. So, but they are going to use some of her footage from Force Awakens and The Last Jedi to kind of compensate for her character in The Rise of Skywalker. That film, I want to believe that there's some hope for, despite the fact that The Last Jedi is a insufferably dull film and a really a very mess of a movie. I want to believe that it can be good, despite the fact that Palpatine is coming back. I kind of like it, and I'm kind of split on this. I like it because maybe since Snoke, who was well acted by Andy Serkis, and had good stop motion animation, there was really nothing to his character, and his character was completely wasted and just died in such a lame way. And just another example of subverting expectations. But there was really not much of a backstory in Snoke. We don't really know what his motivations are. I mean, the novels may have fleshed it out, but it was never really fleshed out in the films, and the films did a very poor job of making Snoke this villain. He was not well developed, just completely wasted and just killed off like, yeah, who cares? And then just the whole inconsistency of The Last Jedi really messed things up. It mucked things up. The script needed a whole rewrite and the whole film needed to be reshot. Because I'm pretty sure JJ didn't have this in mind. But they were trying to recreate what they did in the old days. Because now JJ has come back to direct this film and write this film as well. So he's going to have to at least try to fix whatever The Last Jedi did, or maybe retcon certain elements. Hopefully maybe Luke does return in the flesh other than just being a Force ghost. But maybe they can make, that's just wishful thinking. Maybe they can make him, wake up in a vision or something like that, but that's just very wishful thinking. It's very doubtful because Disney and Lucasfilm are not going to allow that. And basically, Kathleen is just laughing it up. She's like, hey, yes, I got the female agenda. I'm promoting this agenda because that's the way it is, because the Force is female. Yeah, I like having Rey as a character to root for and be one-dimensional because she's invincible. she's the powerful Jedi ever, and that's what I have a feeling they're going to make her be in this next one, unless it's somehow. Oh my God, I'm sorry about that. I was hoping it would be silent. Oh my God, I'm so sorry about that. Excuse that. So there you go. But yeah, the bullshit politics did not need to be shoved down our throats. We did not need to have a political agenda be needed in a Star Wars film at all. It was unwanted and unneeded. It could have been in another film, not in a Star Wars, not in a Star Wars franchise. Anywho, I don't know how much hope I have for the Rise of Skywalker. I want to hope it at least will be better than the last jerk off, or the last hand job, as I like to call it. But yeah, so whatever they do to Palpatine, I hope they don't fuck it up in the way they kind of already did, because it seems like it makes Anakin's redemption in the Return of the Jedi a little more pointless. And looking back, if you were going to just give my what I think should have happened, like I said before, JJ should have been the director of this entire series, along with Lucas executive producing and Lawrence Kasdan writing the script, along with maybe James Cameron, and you would have had an awesome sequel trilogy that would have turned out much different. If you needed to have a strong female lead, I believe Cameron would have developed her well, not JJ. Definitely not ruined for sure. And had a story where where Han, Luke, and Leia are definitely not complete failures. You can involve something from the extended universe by Thrawn, or something involving the clone of Palpatine coming back in some way, which is what I'm guessing they're trying to do in The Rise of Skywalker, hence the nostalgia factor by J.J. Abrams. So yeah, you could have done so much more with this, and you chose to do this bullshit instead. Unacceptable. What I said, George Lucas being the executive producer, J.J. being the director, James Cameron being the writer, getting all the cast members back. Of course, Billy D. Williams comes back in The Rise of Skywalker. Hopefully they don't kill him off, but since he's a different race and all that stuff, they probably won't. But they probably won't give him much to do. When the leaks have said so many other things, I have a feeling this film is going to be a mess. So I don't know if it's going to be any good, or if hopefully they can construct something that flows consistently, and we'll definitely get a good wraparound end for the Star Wars saga. So hopefully it doesn't end on a underwhelming and pathetic note, because unfortunately that's what The Last Jedi did. So there you go. Anywho, I don't know if you like this video, or if I explained what I think should have happened. I don't know about plot points, because I'm not a complete Star Wars fan, but I like Star Wars, and I don't like seeing beloved characters like this get butchered. So we deserved a better sequel trilogy. And we probably will never get that, because this is apparently officially canon, and Carrie Fisher's no longer with us. So seems like franchise in general, like besides this, anytime we try to force an agenda down our throats, we don't want to see that. We just want to see good old-fashioned entertainment, good versus evil, simplistic plots. I mean, they may be simplistic, but you know what? We want something that we as the audience can embrace and empathize with, and give us good characters with good character development, and that's the facts. Anywho, those are really my personal thoughts. I'm sorry if this video went for too long. I'm going to wrap it up soon, and as for my next videos, there are definitely going to be movie reviews of the Airplane and Airplane 2 films. Very underrated, slapstick humor, visual gags, you name it. It's just fun entertainment. So there you go. And for all my new and current subs, hopefully, like I said before, you enjoyed this video. Hopefully it's to the point, and hopefully you'll like more content that I bring in the next videos, whether it's movie related or sports related or personal related. So there you go. Okay, well, hopefully this turns out great. I will see you folks in another video. Okay, later.